Bagging.
So, welcome to round three of Coach Connect. Tonight is led by Van, and we've been able to set this up so Van can drive.
No, it's really cool. But this is actually running off Steve's computer, but I get to control it from my phone. So it's a bit um, fancy tech, but definitely love it. First of all, just acknowledge the land in which our academy is, where we play, where we train, and where we turn around and compete is the land of the Darrell people. The Southwest Sydney Academy's board acknowledges the traditional owners of the country and recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters, and culture. We pay our respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. These are your links, which you guys should be aware of. And I am super excited to be able to deliver today's session, which is about providing athlete feedback, in particular around what we call individual performance plans. So what I thought I'd start with is, do you turn around and get your athletes, beginning or when you start with them, to question themselves as to why they're here, where they're going, what they want to turn around and achieve? So I've just listed a couple of different questions on there, which is some driving points that you could turn around and start with an athlete. And the reason why I put these out there is because if you turn around and start simply by asking the athlete what they want, where they're going, what they're trying to achieve, one, you as a coach will turn around and learn where their journey is going and be able to help steer that vehicle for them. But two, you will also pick up the players who don't actually have these thoughts or have never thought about these. And that'll give you an idea as to where they're at in their journey, and also help them prompt that journey as well. So if you're asking these questions, then an IAPP can turn around and help frame it and also guide a pathway for you to be able to help athletes achieve their performance goals. So what actually is an IAPP? It stands for Individual Athlete Performance Plan. So it is actually geared towards performance and geared towards achieving goals in that performance space and individual to the client, to the athlete. So it focuses on the individual. It provides them their performance goals across different areas. So it's generally recognized that you're looking at technical, tactical, psychological, and physiological aspects, but then also making it specific to them. It provides a map for the individual to be able to achieve these goals. So what I've done here is it's just a screenshot of an IAPP that's used in the netball world. So in netball, there are different levels of plans depending on the level that the athlete's at. So this is equivalent to an athlete sitting at an academy level. So what are the different components that you'll turn around and see in an IAPP? So obviously the athlete's information, their name, so it's individual and specific to them. Then it tends to list different specific attributes to the sport that they turn around and play or the positions that they turn around and play. There has to be an opportunity for ranking. So when I deliver these, I have a delivery where the athlete ranks themselves, but then the coach also ranks the athlete in each of these components. And then a section where you can turn around and put an action plan together. Go to the next screen. Oh, sorry. And make sure you have their performance goals are listed there as well. So really quickly and easily on one page, you're able to have a really good snapshot and a little bit of a map as to who it is, where they're going, where they're at the moment, and then an opportunity to turn around and put in some steps in place for them to achieve the goals that they've put down in that top section through there. The other part of it that I think is extremely important is in terms of the different sections that you're looking to rank and review for an athlete is to make sure you have a section around their talent behaviors, because it's that good old saying they can be talented as anything and have all the skill in the world, but if they don't have the behaviors behind to drive it, then that long-term success won't be there. And sometimes players don't recognize simple things, their ability to follow processes and procedures, their ability to be a team player if you're in a team sport, and also their leadership qualities as well. So it doesn't have to be those three attributes, but they're just three that are used at this level in the netball world. But to ensure that there is time for reflection, review, and ranking on their behaviours as well. You also need to have a section that explains the ranking system. This is probably the hardest part of an IAPP is being able to match the interpretation of rankings. So whilst we write there, in this scenario, a 3 to 4 is underperforming, a 5 to 6 is progressing, a 7 to 8 is performing strongly, and a 9 to 10 is excelling, your athlete might see that different to you as a coach in how they interpret what excelling is or what they interpret as performing. What they're measuring against will be different. And then also not only athlete to coach, but coach to coach. So if you've got a wider squad and you've got a number of different coaches delivering this, whilst you think a ranking system is going to objectify it from person to person, it may not happen unless you turn around and explain the ranking system and physically probably put a conversation to that. Give them some examples so that you can try as much as possible to match everybody's intention and interpretation to be the same. And what I mean by this is if you turn around and look at just the word coachable, for example, a player might turn around and think, yeah, I'm very coachable. So they're going to say they're excelling in this because they think that if a coach tells them to do something, that they comply and they respond, and I think they do a really good job of that. So they put themselves down as excelling. But perhaps for you, you're thinking that a coachable person is somebody that turns around and shows up early, does the extras, and your definition is slightly different. So you're like, you know what? They are responsive to your coaching, but they're not doing the extras. So then you only turn around and rate them as performing strongly. That's okay as a starting point to identify that you're on a different page or a different interpretation to the player, but there needs to be a conversation around sitting down together so you can turn around and put you guys on the same page so that you are working towards the same goals or the same direction or the same improvement. And this plan is clear for everybody that's involved in it as to where the athlete themselves want to turn around and go. Because if they think that they're a 9 or a 10, well, they're, potentially not going to put too much effort in that space when potentially you think that that little added extra in that space is what they need. That's going to make a significant difference to their performance improvement as well. And finally, the final component of an IAPP is to have a review day. So you make sure that you actually force yourselves to sit down, reflect on the whole journey from where you were and where you're going and start to set some realistic goals and review points to see how they're traveling along. So what I'm going to do next is actually strip it down a little bit more. So you guys would all know that a SMART goal is, that framework you turn around and use to make goals successful. As I started to do more IAPPs over the years, I started to turn around and utilize the same framework, but to make an IAPP successful. So some parts are similar to that SMART goal framework, but some parts are slightly different. So for me, I think what makes a great IAPP is that it is succinct. So to make sure it's clear, it's concise, it should definitely be able to fit on one page. That it's meaningful, so it is individualized and meaningful to the person, not meaningful to the coach, but meaningful to the person the plan is actually about. So it's got to be areas that they genuinely believe is a true reflection of themselves. Because if you hand them a document that says, oh, this is where I think you're at, and they don't think the same, they're probably going to turn around and think that it's garbage and actually not do very much about it. And so it has to be meaningful to them as well. It has to be detailed enough that it's actionable, and I go through that in a bit more detail over the next couple of slides. Has to be something that you regularly review, and so you can turn around and track progress, make modifications as you need to, potentially realize that you've achieved goals before what you anticipated, and you start to also move the goalpost as well to make sure the goal setting process is quite accurate and quite realistic. And again, making sure it's tailored to the athlete. I think it's very easy, particularly when you've got bigger squads, that you kind of just do a template sort of everybody needs this, everybody needs this. But what are the key areas, particular to that athlete, that in this moment in time or in the next period that you're after is going to make the most meaningful change, allow that player to focus and work on that. Potentially, the longer timeline might see everybody achieve the same end result, but that journey to turn around and get to that end result will be different for each person. So making sure you're taking the ample time to make that tailored to each athlete. So the action plan. So you guys would have seen this last week from Guy, his IAPP. And I just pulled it back out again because I love the detail of the action plan inside there. So just a refresher, that in that action plan, he spoke about what areas do you need to change or improve? What's the measure? So how are you going to actually check that that change component is actually being achieved or being tracked along the way? Who are the people and the resources that you need to be able to achieve that change? When are you going to review this? And some additional comments. And I think if we turn around and make sure the action plan has enough detail and hits these target areas, and we take the time and effort to turn around and put detail into IAPPs, but still clear and still succinct, then you're going to be able to genuinely help each individual and as many individuals be able to achieve their performance goals. And if each individual is achieving performance goals, if you're an individual sport, sweet. If you're in a team sport, then all of a sudden you're raising that bar in performance opportunity or performance standards because your players are able to hit that next gear, not just one of them, but many of them can turn around and achieve that. The other way that I turn around and talk about action plans is a process called stop, start, keep. Have any of you guys done stop, start, keeps before? No?
Don't think so, no. No.
Yeah, Aku, you have? Yeah, so a stop, start, keep is a quicker, clear and succinct way to turn around and look at action plans. And so what it basically is getting a person to turn around and think, okay, if this is my performance goal and this is what I want to turn around and achieve, how do I turn around and get there? So it gives you actionable steps. So these are things I need to stop doing. These are the things I need to start doing. These are things I need to keep doing. So for example, if you're looking to turn around and say the performance goal is to shave off 3 seconds off your, I don't know, 100-meter sprint, and you've gone through this action plan and worked out that in the physiological space, your takeoff speed is too slow, for example. And the reason for that is you're bending over too much off that starting position. And you need to turn around and, I don't know, straighten your back up a little bit more. So it might be the fact that you're going to stop stooping over on that start position. You're going to turn around and start working on your upper body so that your upper body's strong enough that you can hold your upper body tall enough in that starting position. And the coach has given you feedback that what you're actually doing really well, what you're scoring really high, is showing up to training early and making sure you do a thorough prehab warm-up so you're ready to go. So you're going to keep doing that. So this can be done on different levels. It can be done on that bigger scale for your bigger goals and the bigger picture. Where I actually use this a lot more is actually on the day-to-day and in the moment stuff. So it potentially could be you're going into a grand final. Your team know how to play. They know what they need to turn around and do. But sometimes an individual might not be able to just keep focus because they think there's just so much to do. So similar to a bigger IAPP and a bigger performance plan, how do we achieve that? We need to break that part down. So then in a moment, it might actually be that what you need them to do is learn in the moment to keep their eyes up, keep the drive going, and be confident enough to put the shot up, for example. But for them, they just keep flying in their head everything else that they need to do, and they just can't keep clarity on clear, succinct things. So then you go through a process just before they get out on court or get out on field where, okay, these next 15 minutes, I'm going to stop turning around and just standing still, staring at my teammates. I'm going to start running each time I've got ball in hand, and I'm going to keep putting myself in a position to get up to the post. And then it's nice and clear. It's almost a mantra that sits inside their head. And so they can do that in all the little steps, so that all those little steps, we know little steps built together, turn around and grow great things. And so you can use it as small as you need to, but you can also use it as big as you need to as well. But I do find that it's a actionable way to be able to show them how to get to a goal in comparison to just saying, right, I've just got to get fitter. And if I get fitter, if I run faster, if I run for longer, I'm going to turn around and get there. That they have an opportunity, I love the keep, an opportunity to recognize, remind themselves that they have so much goodness But on top of that, they've still got things to work on, and they've also got tiny bad habits that if you turn around and just, take them out of their game or take them out of their head thinking process, that it's going to turn around and make a difference for them. So then I go in to think, well, that's great. There's a lot to turn around and do. You're trying to put all these detailed action plans together. You're trying to understand every athlete that you've got. You're trying to put individual performance plans together. Marku, you're sitting at 30 athletes, I think, this year. Is that right? Sorry, Jeff, how many are in basketball this year?
As far as squad numbers,
Yeah, squad numbers.
5-on-5, we've got 16 male athletes, 5
Yeah.
female, which is
Yeah. It's about 20 plus.
disappointing. And 3-on-3, we've got, I think there's about 18, I
Yeah,
think.
so still pretty big numbers.
Yeah, but some of the 3-on-3 and the 5-on-5 crossover. Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking at the same thing, around about 30 athletes then by the sounds of it. So, we're volunteers in this role. We really want to be able to build some individualized planning for each person. We know that if we've got these succinct and clear plans, that it gives a higher chance for each athlete to turn around and succeed. But how do you do this? Particularly in the academy space, you don't see them very often. You're a volunteer. There's so many of them. There's all these different components. You've got all these other things you need to do as a coach. You want to be able to get them on court, get them on field, get all the skill work done. How do you actually turn around and make this as effective as possible? So I've just put a list of ideas together. So if one way is to start a journal reflection process. A written one is what I would turn around and suggest, because what that will do is it teaches athletes the art of even just stopping and thinking and reflecting and writing down about themselves, about their performance, about the moment. So you can build that as a book or a electronic device or whatever that gives them a tool to reflect back on. But the only way to get better at being able to be more detailed in reflecting, reviewing, and getting on the same page as a coach to be able to work through an IAPP is to be really good at reflecting and making sure that the words you write down become more quality, become more meaningful, become more succinct. And that comes with practice. It actually takes practice to be able to do that. Expose athletes to different sort of review journaling tasks. So start, stop, keeps, for example. Even if you might only see them every fortnight, if you do a start, stop, keep, the other side of it is when people say things and they say that in front of their peers, it also has to start to become real, because you have to own it now. You're starting to share what your goals are, what your dreams are. And like I've done this in the past where you do it as an open forum for your team, and you also start to learn those that are really tough on themselves, that they actually can't even identify what they're good at. And so they get to the keep and they're like, and so sometimes it generates a scenario where other players jump in and turn around and say, hey, Steve, you're actually really, really good at blah, 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 blah. And so all of a sudden, they're starting to realize that they've got a lot of goodness. And when they hear that from their teammates, that culture starts to build. The fact that everybody's making themselves vulnerable, the fact that everybody's reflecting on a regular basis. And then people start to realize, hey, hang on a second, we're all here trying to be better. And if we all keep being better, then our performance will improve individually, our performance will improve as a team as well. But they start sharing that vulnerability, they start sharing that discipline, and they start sharing that reflection of their own performance, and then building that plan just gets easier and easier and easier. And I think we all know it. When you ask somebody else to tell you what you're like, they'll tell you like this. And so sometimes it's easier to kickstart the process by hearing it from other people, but you have to do it regularly enough that you start to own a lot of that yourself as well. Use technology. And so Excel docs are really good because you can color code things, get them to rank, and then the colors turn around and change. You might even look at like a shared document, which will allow you and as an athlete and the coach to just communicate. No one else can see it except for those that need to see it. So you're just a simple Google Doc or a Word doc. I put Microsoft Loop on there. I don't know if you guys are aware of Microsoft Loop, but it's like a online electronic notebook. So as a coach, you could actually have this electronic online notebook that has a page separate for every single athlete, and no athlete can see another person's page, but you can see all of them in one spot. So I've got these, and I've got, one for this program, one for that program. So they're separate, but within a program, I've got 10 pages for the 10 athletes. I can see them all in one spot, but the players can only see their own page, and I can share that process with them. You can see when they're coming on, you can see when they're writing things, you can see when they're deleting things as well. So you can start to see their trail of thought, and you can use that as a prompt. A training diary as well. There's a lot of apps out there with training diaries, or just even normal journaling, and you can prompt them with questions to turn around and work on something daily to reflect on, which will build into that bigger picture of the IAPP to help them remind themselves, well, this is a goal. What do I need to do on a daily basis to achieve that bigger IAPP? And then, if you've got a big squad, split the squad up, have some check-in groups, split them between your staff, and empower your staff to actually head some of this. And then you check in with your staff. And you might work out that, player A, B, and C need that little bit extra, and needs you directly. But for the general part, it's actually a really good learning tool so that we share the process with other coaches and other people. And a bit like what Steve said, so we can grow our next crop of coaches coming along, that they're exposed to these processes. They're exposed to the need to prepare for them, to be able to have these conversations with the players, and they share that load with you. And it's pretty cool because then as coaches, you come back in together and say, oh man, I didn't realize that guy was like this. Do you know what he said in my last check-in? And then you start to share that. So then all of a sudden you've got, I don't know, 4 coaches going to 6 players each, and you can get a snapshot on 30 players within a 1-hour catch up with your staff, instead of taking probably 6-7 hours to even just get through and get to know 30 athletes individually. Or you're reading through 30 pieces of paper because the athletes have filled it out themselves, but your time to go in and actually build a relationship and check in with each individual athlete, when you're only seeing them fortnightly or monthly, it's going to take you the whole season. And these guys need time to be able to achieve their goals on the IAPP. They've got to work with a whole lot of other people and other coaching staff and other programs as well. So it can be a really good single document for them to turn around and go to their club coach or their rep coach and say, right, I've sat down, I spent a hell of a lot of time with my SWAS group, and we've put this plan together. And I really think this is going to be what I need, and where I'm going. Where does this fit in with X team that I'm in? Can you help me with these things? Can you be a resource for me? Can you, be a part of these? Which sections do you think you can help me with? And it also can be a tool to instigate conversation and instigate other people to come on the journey with the athlete, so that the athlete can start to be the driver of their journey and the driver of their performance journey as well. So that's as much as I've gone through in terms of the athlete side. And before I move to the next section, have any of you guys got any questions around the athlete plans? How many of you guys are using it already?
Yeah, Guy here, Van. I certainly use it for my athletes, and looking to implement it with the West Future Stars as well in the next month or
Nice.
so. Very worthwhile, and especially with pathway athletes and those aspiring to something a lot bigger than the suburban or regional content they're in at the moment. Those looking to get into state and national teams certainly need a plan to go with them as well. So
Yeah, definitely.
I suppose the comment you made there about getting the home coach involved is really important, because that was the thing I was thinking. That's the missing link in what you were talking about, but you raised it at the end, which is really important. And even getting the home coach to have some input into the process is really good, but
Definitely.
certainly at least having them share the plan with their home coach as well, and then having them have that discussion with their home coach is really important, I think. So
Yeah, definitely.
that's probably the most important part of the whole process, I think, is making it a more holistic process with all the players involved in that process.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that came up last week, and it can be, and Cattle support me on this, was a thing they held at the end of each night called the WWW session. And it was what wins you had during the day or whatever you were doing, and
Yeah.
then what worked and what didn't work for it.
Yeah.
And then what do you want from it? So
Yeah.
you could set a future goal. Now you could do that both, I think, individually for the athletes, and you could also do it as a team
Yeah. At the end of a game or
goal
something.
setting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many of these little processes out there, or little acronyms, or approaches. And I don't know if there's a right one. I think it's just about exposing yourself to a process. I think it's important to do both a team one as well as an individual one within your team. And then trying to figure out where that sits in terms of, do the individual ones get done publicly in front of your whole team, or is that something that's just private between the coach and the individual? The team one definitely has to be owned by everybody, but is it a scenario where you have the same people talking about and others shying away? How do you get those shying away to buy into that, so you have everybody on that journey with you? And it's just being able to get down to the individual to know what their challenges are individually, so you can get all of them to be inputting and all of them to be involved, so that you've got the whole team on a team improvement plan on top of each individual on their plan, but piecing that puzzle together for everybody. And then I think the other part of that puzzle is also us as coaches. Have we got our own coach improvement plan, and where does our puzzle fit in? So you, as coaches yourselves, do you guys do a coach improvement plan for yourself or for the coaches that you work alongside?
I haven't, but it's certainly something worth looking at, particularly when you're a mentor coach.
Yeah.
If you're mentoring the younger ones, well, you've got to be able to look to set up a plan for them to show them what pathway they can go along to succeed if they want to work on the coaching as they
Yeah.
see themselves more as a coach than, hey, I'm not going to succeed as an athlete,
Yeah.
but here I'll take on the coaching aspect side of things.
Yeah.
I tend to do a lot of reflection on coaching as well too, Van, just like whether it's journaling or after certain events or just after games or what have you, just a lot of
But have you
reflection
got an
and review.
overarching plan, like improvement plan for yourself, or is it just more reflective post stuff?
It's reflective throughout lots of different things, but then also I could probably knock up like what my own model would be, but from what I'm reflecting is where I pull things that where I might recognize improvements, or where I've identified like things that I want to get better at or stop or start doing. That sort of stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, Van, certainly I coach some coaches and have helped them through their association coaching process in the last 18 months or so. And I have given them some goals to work towards and some things to improve on. From my perspective, I always, as Aku mentioned, I always reflect and I do change often. But often it's to do with different types of coaching environments I'm working in. So I haven't got a coaching plan as such, but I'm very mindful of in the sports that I work in, it's really important to have environments that change a bit constantly. Otherwise, athletes get bored and you do the same thing over and over again, and it becomes probably second nature after a while, but also it becomes a bit useless after you've taught them through a different phase in their development. So the reflection part's really important, but also being open to change is a really important component of that as well. So, and I think even at my age, I'm still changing a bit as I go along. Which is probably a good thing. Yeah.
yeah, a byproduct of our reflection and our constant review. Exactly right. We evolve and we change. Steve, have you got a coach improvement plan or done that before?
Yeah, I'm probably a bit similar to a coup in that a lot of it's been from reflection, but a lot of it's notes and then putting that together at the start of the season, saying, what's the type of coach I want to be for my athletes, but also asking the athletes what they want out of me as a coach. But again, a lot of that coach improvement or that development plan for me has been to identify what I need, what targets I need to hit in the pathway if I wanted to succeed or go further, but then also take
Yeah.
back from state coaches or national league coaches as to, am I actually built to be a coach at that high level, and then turn around and either, the realization that whilst you might want to be a head coach, you're actually a far better assistant coach because of how you're built and how you react to certain situations, as well as the relationships you have with players. And for example, in basketball, if you're really good at keeping stats and feeding numbers information during the game, you might be a better served as an assistant coach. But then if you're reading offense and defense and can read a game, but not so great with numbers and stats, then you've probably got what it takes to be a head coach. Not that you can't coach, but certainly, my coach development plan showed that at a junior level or a youth level, I'm a really good, head coach, but if I was to progress to NBL or higher level, I'm better as an assistant coach because of what I can provide the head coach rather than actually take on that role. So again, it's working with coaches, especially young coaches, to identify where their strengths are and work on those strengths, and get that realization that you may be in the right spot already. And it's going to, you can be successful sitting in that assistant coaching role for 20, 30 years. You don't have to be a head coach to be successful.
Yeah. So I came across, whilst I guess forced into this process back in, I think it was either 2017 or 2018, where the academies, oh, I can't remember the name of it, but the regional academies had the opportunity to turn around and have one person from each regional academy go down to the AIS for their coach development program down there. And it was absolutely outstanding because it's quite funny. We sit here and we talk about the things we need to turn around and do for players to improve and achieve their goals. But we don't ever really stop to do that for ourselves and our own journey and where we want to turn around and go. So when Steve turned around and said to me, "Oh, Van, can we do something about coach improvement?" I said, "Oh my God, absolutely." Because as much as I love the improvement planning and performance planning for athletes, I probably enjoy it a bit more with coaches because we're really bad at stopping and looking at it for ourselves and reviewing where we want to go. And I think in coaching, when you're constantly having to apply for positions, it's kind of like, okay, well, if they're not taking me, then where to? And you don't really know. So what I've done is I've put together the framework that I learned back in 2017, 18 from the AIS. So it definitely starts with knowing your coach philosophy. I think in the last probably decade, coaches are better at this in being able to understand and ask themselves, why do you coach? Why do you coach that way? What's it like to be coached by me? What are the goals? How do you engage in your athletes? And I think there was almost a buzz thing to do in the coaching world that you had to have a clear coaching philosophy. I remember clearly having to turn around and do this to be able to apply for a couple of different roles and positions. And, I review it all the time and reflect on it all the time because as I grew, then obviously my philosophy, tweaked and changed a little bit as well. So I think we do this part fairly good because it's pretty common for those aspiring to coach to be told to figure out what their philosophy is. But then the next part about this is what is called a coach success profile. So a coach success profile, it's a bit like what Steve was talking about. It's it's a table and it's an outline of what are the things that you need to be successful in a particular role. So for example, to be a South West Sydney Academy Sport basketball head coach, what are the different components that would see someone to be successful? So we break it down in 4 different categories. One is in experience, then knowledge, then competencies and personal attributes. So in experience, so that's the physical achievements. So potentially SWAS might turn around and think, to be successful SWAS head coach, you need to have at least coached at a representative level. So if anybody's club level only, straight off the bat, we know then they're not going to, you're not setting them up for success if you're going to say that they're good enough to be in the head coach space. Okay. Then we head over to knowledge. So this is accreditations, education, the courses that you turn around and do. Potentially there might be things in there that are technical or professional or specific to the sport. So in netball, for example, you'd have to have a particular level of accreditation to be coaching at a particular level. So you start to match that side of it. Then in competencies, this is behaviors. And so it's things like communication, teamwork, time management, those sorts of things. So it's doing attributes and competencies. And then personal attributes are, you know, your values and what makes up a human being, what motivates them. So it might be the fact that they're a caring person or they're a nurturing person and those sorts of things. I've got an example coming up later. But then this success profile gives you 2 things. One part is the gold standard. If somebody hits each one of these boxes, they are your perfect candidate. We know that that doesn't ever exist, but then it's also about those that are assessing or appointing to have a look and say, okay, these applicants fit in. They're a bit more experience heavy, but their personal attributes is quite low, or their personal attributes is absolutely outstanding, but their knowledge is a little bit low. So then you can start to put a little bit of a picture together as to how each applicant turns around and looks and size them up. Because it's really hard sometimes to turn around and say, okay, I've got 4 coaches at 4 different coaching accreditations. That doesn't necessarily mean that the most accredited coach is your best coach or going to be the most successful coach for you. But then what is it that you're actually looking at? So it's the ability for you to actually visualize and verbalize the different components that make up a successful person for a role. So it's almost part of a job description. And it's a framework that, you know, works best when it's developed for every single position that you're turning around and looking at. And then from that, it's right, here's a list of all the things that create success. So then in your improvement plan, you have a look at this and say, okay, well, I aspire to be a head coach of SWAS. They say that these are the things that we need or I need to turn around and be successful in it. So then you've got to strip it down and say, okay, of these, really good at this, really crap at this, and this is the area I already know that I'm not very good at, but I've already started working on it. So then you can start to see where you are yourself alongside what they want for that role or to be successful in a particular position. And then the final part about that is actually putting together how you're going to achieve that. Same process as the players. What do you need to change? How are you going to measure it? Who's going to help you? What dates you're going to put review to that, and some commentary to help you achieve that goal. So you end up with a single, Steve, I don't reckon I can click that because I've only got start like next page and previous page. So can you click on that link so it opens up bigger? And so what you can turn around and do, let's try and zoom in on that maybe. So this is a success profile for a particular role that I was on a panel on in the past. And so it goes through in fair detail as to what experience, what education. Scroll down to the bottom half, Steve, and then the competencies and personal attributes. I just want to leave it there for a second. Because I think sometimes, and we probably have all come across them before, you've got the really accredited coach or the coach's coach at such a high level, but their personal attributes and their competencies are lacking. And so you're like, you're not for us. And they're like, what do you mean? You know, I'm gung-ho, I've coached at all these levels, I've coached for 30 odd years, because they're only concentrating on the experience and the knowledge side. And they're forgetting that what you're assessing is, oh, actually, you're a little bit shady in these 2 bottom columns or categories down here. And then on the flip side, you've got the person who is, you know, so passionate, loves what they're doing, is giving their absolute all, lives and breathes the sport, but has never got a day in the life of accreditation, or has never really had a gig that will provide them experience to turn around and be able to take that next step. So then you start to, and then everything in between. So you can start to see a shift of, you know, where do my applicants look? Where do I look as a coach alongside what these guys are after to turn around and be successful? And then it's okay, you know what? I know that my strengths are in the personal attributes. I know I need a little bit more of my accreditation, but sweet, that's something I can change. I know the next accreditation step is a simple course that I have to turn around and do. So I'm going to kickstart that because that's in my control. I'm going to make that a part of my action plan because that moves me closer to be successful in the profile that I'm after. So you know clearly what it is that you need to be able to go to that role that you want or go to the next level. It's not just an accreditation piece to get to the next level. You can have a clear reflection of yourself that, you know, I'm a really good communicator, but maybe I'm not good at my time management. Or I'm great communicator, great in listening. I execute really well when I'm coaching. I'm really receptive, but I'm probably not inspiring and motivating. So my players just zone out when they hear my voice. And maybe that's the missing link. But you can start to honestly self-reflect. You can take feedback from people around you and say, hey, right, this is what I've been told that this is what I need to be successful. What do you think I am good at, bad at when you look at these, you know, personal attributes? Because it's beyond the coaching space. It's beyond the netball that you know or the basketball that you know. It's your ability to inspire. It's your ability to turn around and show up for your players. It's your ability to show discipline, to be honest, even to be courageous and calm. So Steve, when you're jumping up and down on that bench on the sideline, you know, maybe that's the side. Okay, well, I've got everything else, but they just want someone who's calm. They might turn around and say, right, we've already got a hectic, crazy head coach. We need to balance it out with a calm person. And then you're gung-ho and probably better equipped than every other person, but you're not a calm person. And so, you know, you can see it in all different frameworks in terms of who you are, what attributes you can, you know, grow to be better in that space. And then on the flip side, if you're appointing coaches or looking for a team of coaches to work alongside you, it's almost like a skills matrix. It's like, okay, I've already got a lot of testosterone and a lot of, you know, gun-ho motivating, inspiring people. I don't need any more of that. I need someone who's actually going to be an active listener. And so you can start to frame that together, but you also can start to figure out for yourself, where do you fit? What are your strengths? And then what type of roles are you most matched with so that you can be successful in your journey? Or what's outside your reach and you really want that, and that's the goal that you've got, but what are you missing to be able to be that next level coach or that next step coach? Because unlike players have a fairly linear journey. You know, you're playing club, then you're playing reps, then you're playing regional, then you're playing state, and, you know, then you go up from there. But I don't think coaching's the same. I don't think that international coaching is always necessarily the pinnacle on top of coaching your grassroots, because the effect of success is different for each level. And so I think a coach's journey, you know, is all over the shot, and it's different. It just doesn't mean that, you know, once you get to the top and that's it, because the challenges are different in different spaces. So to be able to get a clear picture of what you need to succeed in the space that you're after or the role that you're looking to turn around and go to, size yourself up on it to be able to have a self-reflection of what you think you're good at, what you need to work on, the areas that you're already working on and how you're working on them. And then that whole action plan. And the action plan, that process is exactly the same as the athletes. I think it's just the sizing up and, you know, trying to figure out where you're at is a little bit different. So if you scroll down, Steve, to the second page, this is a pretty simple, or is it on the next one? Yeah, this is a pretty simple action plan, but similar to your IAPP for an athlete, but this would be your IAPP for yourself as a coach. So same thing, individualized to you. It has the goal sitting inside there. You have a self-analysis of where you're at, And then you pick, okay, can't change everything, can't turn around and, work on everything at the same time. But you might turn around and say, okay, well, this year I'm working in a similar space. So I'm really comfortable with that space. So I'm ready to put myself out of my comfort zone and work on something that I'm actually really poor at or is a weakness of mine. So you might identify one of your weaknesses is your communication. So, right, how do I turn around and improve that? What steps do I need to take? Who do I need to enlist? What am I going to measure that against? Who's going to help me with it, and when am I going to review this? Or you might turn around and be like, oh my God, I'm in a brand new space. I'm really uncomfortable already. There's so much that I have to turn around and, get my head around. So it's probably not the right time for you to work on something that changes you in total, but it might be the fact that, okay, I've already started working on these areas of improvement. And if I just get this section a little bit better, then my new environment's going to be easier for me. So then you choose to work on something that you're already improving. Then the other side that was a huge highlight for me, particularly when I did this course those years ago, was what are you doing about your strengths? You might be outstanding at your communication skills, and often when you're good at something, you choose not to work on it because you're like, nah, I'm sweet with that. I don't need any work on that. But as we all know, generations change, people change, the world changes, and we need to evolve. So is my communication still equipped for the level that I'm going into? I might have been a fantastic communicator for that junior team that I've been coaching for the last, 4 years. I've been promoted to now 23's age bracket. And all of a sudden, I'm a really good communicator, but I'm not so good in the 23 space because I'm good at talking to a 15-year-old, but I'm not so great talking to a 21-year-old. So to be able to assess your physical strengths as well, but then decide maybe that's what I need to work on, and that's what I need to put down into my action plan for this period of time, because I know that I'm really strong as a coach, I'm a communicator, but I'm a bit vulnerable here with my communication in this new space that I'm in. So it just gives you a chance to be able to do a self-reflection, and not just a reflection of the delivery of the session that you just did, or the year of delivery of programming that you did for the success of the program, because that tends to be what we do. It's a reflection of yourself as a coach, where you're at. And what this helped me do is also identify when it was time for me to move on, to change, to go to a different space, why I was going to a different space, what I wanted to achieve in the next space, what became my non-negotiables in my life as well. That, it's all great and good to go up the ranks as a coach, but for me, it got to a stage that it was hitting my non-negotiables, and I'm like, nah, I actually can't do that. But I was able to do that because I could do not just a reflection of myself, but a bigger plan of where is my coaching actually going? And then I realized that whilst the person next to me needed to go up the ranks to achieve their goals, I didn't need to go up the ranks to achieve my goals, because my goals were not actually going to be met if I sat in that next space, because what they delivered, what they were able to give, actually wasn't going to be giving me what I needed to improve for myself as well. And, the day you stop improving is the day you turn around and stop, or the day you turn around and, walk away and challenge yourself. And so I think it gives you an opportunity to make sure that you not just reflect on what's been done, but like what we say to the players, reflect with purpose, review your goals, pat yourself on the back when you achieve the goals as well, but then also move the goalpost. And then also identify that, maybe it is time for a new environment. And sometimes you might not see that or think that or foresee that unless we're doing a regular review on yourself and on your own performance and on where you're going with your coach journey as well. So yeah, that's the coach improvement plan and process that I was really fortunate to be exposed to. Then in 2019, and then after COVID, so it would have been about 21, netball in SWAS actually had a group of development coaches that weren't appointed in our space, but wanted to learn and grow. So then I actually took this framework and then delivered it as a mentor coach. So then I used this for the mentees and for them to turn around and reflect, for them to turn around and start thinking about themselves and where their journey was going. But then I then also used it as a tool to give them feedback to say, okay, well, you think your strengths are this, this, and this. What I can see and observe is this, 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 and this. These are the areas that I think you need to turn around and do some work on. These are things that I think are in control for you. Go on and enlist some extra help in these areas. As a mentor, I can help you in these areas. And they're able to put an action plan together so that they almost stayed on task for the year, that you're not getting lost in just coaching your athletes or coaching your people, but you start to actually implement little processes in your coaching day to day that's actually about you improving. And it could be simple as turning around and asking players at the end of a session, what did I do good today as a coach? Did I communicate clearly today? Did you think that my demonstration was on point, if that's what you're trying to work on? You know, and actually putting yourself vulnerable enough to be able to receive that feedback from your players as well, so that they know that you're going on a coach journey, that they can see that you genuinely know the feeling and the journey of being vulnerable and going towards achieving goals, having setbacks in that journey, and journeying through to be able to go somewhere, that they can see that you can do it too, and they believe you, so that when you're saying that you can help them, you can genuinely help them as well. So I think there was a lot of positives in being able to expose myself to go through this process. Whereas now I can do this with my eyes closed, and I love doing it. Not just in my coaching space, but in, you know, my working space as well, because it just gives you a chance to have that clarity. And, you know, when as coaches, we constantly give to everybody else, that we actually stop and have a look at ourselves and don't get lost in the mess of it all. And that our purpose and our why is clear and it remains, so that you always have that fire in your belly in whatever role that you're appointed to, or you turn around and choose to be involved in. So I'm pretty sure that ends my section from memory. Yeah. So any, I don't know, any questions, any feedback, any comments from you guys in terms of the coaching improvement plan and being able to apply that same process to yourself?
Certainly a worthwhile process, Van, for any level coach. I think even,
Yeah.
you know, someone just starting out might have a whole different perspective on what they need to do and improve and where
Yeah.
to go to. But even at a highest level, you know, national teams and the state teams and whatever, those coaches still need to review what's happening, and their environments change constantly as well. So they need to rethink things. So I think it's certainly a good process to have in play.
Even players who are transitioning to coaching, a lot of players who are outstanding players think that they make outstanding coaches, like from the get-go. And, you know, they probably will get there, but need a little bit of guidance. I have found that has worked quite well with the coaches I work with who are transitioning from playing to coaching.
With both the athletes and the coaches, how often would you do the reviews?
I think it depends on what level it is. So at academy level, like with the players, we would turn around and start it at the beginning of the season, and then we would review it at each of the tournaments. So yeah, so it ends up being about 3 to 4 times in the year. But our expectation will be that they are reviewing it on a regular basis, but we would formally check in with them at each tournament or leading up to each tournament, is what we would turn around and do. With the coaches, when I ran it that year so our development coaches, who were mainly community-based coaches looking to get to the next level, I would check in on them once every 2 months. Then the coaches that were appointed to the roles, so I was head coaching in those years, and the assistant coaches that were in the program, I would turn around and check with them monthly, so that we could align their journey to what SWAS needed as well. So it was 2 parts for us. It was for them to go on their coach journey, but for us to align, okay, well, you need to do a bit of work on your programming. So let's find the moments that you can program for SWAS and line that up so that it's not going to be at the expense of the players, but at the same time, it's going to help everybody grow. So that was monthly for them. Is it time consuming? Absolutely. And I stupidly did a lot of that on my own, where there was some years that I did 30 check-ins and I was like, you idiot. But I learned from that. And I, started to share that load and, get others involved, and, reap the benefits and rewards of that. So I think it really just depends. The coaches I now work with, which I work more one-on-one, or like they've come to me to ask for additional like mentoring and help. I try and check in with them at least once a month. And then I tend to send like little messages out to them to say, let's say for instance, their goal was to, and there is actually one coach where their goal was to not stand up on the bench, but to always keep their bottom on the bench. And so I'd send a message over to them every couple of weeks to say, right, last night's game, how many times did you get up? Just to, get them thinking about it, and just something, because that was a part of their action plan. If their action plan was simple and it was little, then it was just a little way to be able to keep them accountable to it. Or, there's another coach that where they're coaching, it's live stream, so I can watch them coach. And I'd turn around and send them an emoji each time they did what they said they weren't going to turn around and do. So they could just see at the end of the game how many times that they did it. And it was just whatever emoji I chose for the night. I'd stick to that and I'd just send that through to them. And then what happened was, as the season went on, the amount of times that they did that bad habit turned around and reduced. So there's just different little ways to check in. But formally, I would do monthly, give and take.
Van, thanks for sharing. Like, I'm keen to have a look at that coaching improvement plan and put my own stuff into that throughout next year.
Well, I've got the Premier League one, Aku, so I can send you the Premier League success profile.
But I like it, and I also like that how you mentioned, and it's probably one of the purposes in having these types of forums is that we want to develop our athletes, and when it comes to coach development, although there might be a lot of resources out there, but it's not always something that we think about, even though there's some of us that really want and crave that personal, professional development. So yeah, I'm keen to have a look at it. It's cool.
Yeah, and that's it. Like I don't know if the coaches who are not jumping on, potentially they don't even realize how life-changing some of this content can be. And I don't know the answer to get them the exposure to it. But yeah, like I think sometimes as coaches, it can be a lonely world that you kind of just trying to get through the motions and go through the next step on your own, because sometimes the other coaches are your rivals, they're your opponents, or they're the person going for the same job as you. So how do you create a network where you're supporting and helping each other? I definitely found that in SWAS, across the other academies, and a lot of the the education opportunities that were delivered here. But I guess when I was going through all that, I was single, I had no family, I had no commitments. So jumping on board everything that was thrown at me was so easy to do. Whereas now I'm on struggle street, 4 kids, a business, and having to make priority decisions. It's not easy, not easy at all. And there comes with a lot of guilt. But I also don't know, I guess, the landscape of the coaches that you have there now, where they're at in their life journey, what their time commitments are, how much coaching they're doing elsewhere. There were moments there where I actually gave up a lot of my other coaching so I could put my focus into SWAS coaching. And I think that journey is different for everybody. But why I made that decision was through this coach improvement plan stuff, that I knew that whilst other people and other players were going to miss out with me not being in that space, because I was getting begged and pleaded to coach in so many different spaces. I knew I couldn't give myself well to so many, but that only came through me doing processes like this. And then I realized I actually needed to gun-ho, hone in and say, right, my dedication, my time is here. This is what I want to achieve out of it. This is what I need to turn around and do. I was in Jerry's ear and saying, right, how can I get this and that? We did some stuff with AFL. I did some cross-sport stuff. And I realized that, these were the things that I need. But what got me there was processes like this.
Yeah.
And I guess you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And so when coaches don't realize that, I guess how not just important, but how useful some of this stuff can be, then how do they prioritize it? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think it's going to
Yeah.
be a bit of deep diving into your current coaches to see where they're at, or are they just coaching because they love it
Because I want to
and that's
coach,
it?
right? Like I often get asked to do lots of different things, but I've become really good at saying no,
Mm,
and focusing where I really want to be, because of time or whatever. But just recently, a club that I know, like in the local area, who I've known for years, I played with them many moons ago, was asking, if I'd get involved and do some videos on skill development, and I'm like, why do you want to do that? Like, there's so much resources online that is already there. You can start collating your own library without videoing me to do it. Like, yeah, it makes sense, but I don't have time to go do that. And you could probably find some really different stuff. And how many of your coaches are actually going to watch it anyway? So
they only know what they know. But yeah, I don't know how to
YouTube,
change that.
yeah,
Yeah.
YouTube.
there is so much stuff like, and I'm only talking about basketball, for example, but you can go onto YouTube and there is so much stuff on basketball that, drills and stuff like that. Even I've got stuff pops up on Facebook
Yeah.
and that of different coaches doing different drills and so, and I've started to now save them,
Yeah.
and I'll put that into my little library, and that, and so right, I'm going to introduce that at one of my training sessions.
I say to everyone, I'm a little bit of a netball nerd or a coach nerd or
Yeah.
a physio nerd, that my social media scrolling time is actually looking at, coaching stuff or netball stuff or physio stuff. And my time on YouTube and that is exactly the same. Whereas, for other people, it's just your general social stuff. So that makes it, I guess, accessible, but also tricky as well. I get it in the physio world. I get applicants who turn around and say to me that how they learn and grow is they flick through Instagram. I'm like, oh shit. Like, if that's your resource to be a good physio, I'm like, oh my goodness. But that's what people also do.
Yeah.
And so they genuinely think that they know so much because they've seen it in an Instagram reel. And I don't know, maybe people as coaches think that they have enough already because of what they scroll and see through Instagram. I don't know the answer to that. But I think it's useful if you go and ask them, and hopefully they respond to you, and engage with you. To be able to get those answers so that, they can hopefully be exposed to, the content that SWAS is so graciously happy to deliver, that might actually help grow and change them, even if it's to confirm that what they're doing is great. I don't know. I think it's definitely a question worth asking the coaches that you have.
Because one of the things I do with all my athletes that I train, I give them a thing at the start of the season. I say, right, write down 2 of your strengths, write down 2 areas that you need to improve on, and also write down a team goal for the season.
Yeah.
And because with those, once they achieve those particular, you then get them to set new ones
Yeah.
and that, and say, okay,
Absolutely.
you've now met that. Now let's set, 2 new ones down for you to aim at. And you're putting the ball in their court to be able to look to work on their own development and that. And it's like, well, I'm doing the next one, I think, on the home programs. That you set them home programs, and the amount of athletes that don't do it and that. And when they come back, you say, "Oh, did you do the program?" "Oh, yeah, you did." Yeah, but they didn't, because you can see the results.
Yeah.
No, anyone can write a figure down. That, but no, I do that with all the. When I was in state teams, we used to have one where we used to list, the player would list their strength and their improvement, but then you had the list of every other player in the team, and they had to put down a strength and a weakness of every other player in the team. And then what I would do, I would bring that all together, but I wouldn't put who said what down, and I'd hand that to the athlete and say, this is what your teammates think your strength is and what your area or what your weakness is.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting because some of the athletes got pretty peeved off when they saw some of the comments of what their teammates thought about them. Yeah, they come to me, oh, who said that? And I'd say, no, I'm not telling you who said it. That's just letting you know what your teammate thinks of you from a strength side and also from a weakness side. And yeah, it was always very interesting.
Yeah, it's just creating that vulnerable amongst everybody to bring them all on the same page. Well, I hope that turns around and gives you guys some insight in that space from my perspective. And then, yeah, we go on to staying fit over summer.
Yeah, I think a great segue there from Coops talking about holiday programming and communication. So that's our next Coach Connect on the lineup. So again, thank you, Van. It was definitely a very valuable topic and one I think we look to continue to build on what's been done in the past with that coach development and mentorship program. It actually is probably 95% of what we were looking to introduce next, written and ready to go. And part of that is hopefully put that across all programs. And the way we were looking at starting that is a couple of face-to-face sessions coming up. So the first, just waiting for the venue to be locked in. I actually prepared this slide before we had confirmation of the venue. But the plan is Friday the 13th of December, we'll all dress in black and come along to we'll all dress in academy coach uniform. So following a BMX, hockey and volleyball induction, assuming it goes ahead, we just want to meet with all the coaches. So coaches from across all programs will be invited just to come out for an hour. Hopefully won't go for an hour and a half, but we'll give ourselves an hour and a half just in case. And it'll basically be a Coach Connect face-to-face session and a breakout where just a meet and greet where coaches from across all the sports can meet each other, can meet the coach technical advisory group, and as opposed to a coach induction, the coach technical advisory group will be the ones leading this and introducing themselves and a bit about their coaching journeys, as well as look to set up a network and mentorship program, pretty much along the same lines of what Van has alluded to with the coach improvement plans and the coach mentor program. In that, hopefully we can match up coaches with coaches that they get along with and seek out that additional help and just basically have a chat across all sports. Again, as we're finding with this, getting 20 coaches in at the same time is difficult, let alone 50. But we'll see where we land with that. We'll obviously have BMX, hockey and volleyball coaching staff should be there, as they need to be there for the induction. So that's probably half our coaching cohort, and the other half I'm sure we will get some. Again, if I can encourage you to have a chat to your assistant coaches and apprentice coaches about the value of this information. Again, if their intention is to be academy coaches in the future, this is eventually going to become part of the core requirements and expectations to remain within the academy environment. And looking ahead to early next year, we're looking at a day conference. At the moment, it's been tagged the Regional Academies Metropolitan Academies Coaches Conference. So Southwest Sydney Academy of Sport, Western Sydney Academy of Sport, and Illawarra Academy of Sport coaching staff to be involved in that. It will be a full day, hopefully at West Leagues Club, if not maybe Thomas Hassel, and breakfast and lunch included. So we'll start with a buffet breakfast. We'll have a lunch break. throughout the day, and there'll be some breakout sessions and all that. But again, the focus will be on that three-dimensional coaching. So again, that's a course we want, or we'd like all our coaches to have a look at and have a crack at. But again, we're going to lock down some guest speakers on that to have a bit of an intensive, immersive deep dive into those concepts in a face-to-face environment. Again, touching on networking and mentorship around this coach development space. So an exciting day planned early in February, and hopefully that's early enough not to clash with representative programs or commitments, but obviously get coaches fired up and excited for the representative and academy season ahead. So once again, thank you, Van. Thank you, members of the Coach Technical Advisory Group on tonight, as well as coaches, obviously, Jeff, Guy, and Aku for coming on, and Kat. I think even though you had to be here, thank you. And again, as we say, we are always will be Southwest Sydney.
Yeah,
Thanks, Ben.
Ben.
Jeff.
Sorry.
Jeff.